No, because everybody knows that Mr. Arvind Kejriwal is a criminal mind. Karanji, I have this story of Open magazine dated 7th October 2016, which you on your channel exposed on the 10th of October 2016. You gave a chance to Mr. Kejriwal and his entire entourage to come and clarify. What does this story says? That he has installed a unit to snoop on everybody and anybody. And this is in operation since February of 2016. Now a man with this criminality can only talk this language. And this is well known. It is not only unsubstantiated, I will say, since it is anecdotal, I have an anecdote to tell you. This afternoon I was sitting with a very senior member of the NIA, and he told me Mr. Kejriwal is mixed up with terrorists. Now, if that is true, as Mr. Kejriwal also said, now if that is true, I am also saying, if that is true, then it is a very serious threat to national security. It is a threat to our democracy.
Mr. Mittal,
it is a threat to the
Mr. Mittal, so
and
that
people who are
Mr.
imposing
Mittal,
such
I need to clarify something for the sake of the audience.
Now,
are you
simply
satirically poking fun at Mr. Kejriwal by citing a story similar to his story about the judges, in which case I'll let it pass. But if you are genuinely suggesting behind the disguise of an anecdote that Mr. Kejriwal is mixed up with terrorists, then I must ask you to name the NIA official who told you this, just as I have asked Mr. Khaitan the same question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. The same standards must be applied to Mr. Kejriwal, who never ever answers these. It is, I'm mocking him, because a criminal who himself does snooping, who has set up a phone tapping unit, who set up a unit to look into the conversations of individuals, is now crying wolf.
Yes, a good point you make.
This allegation he has never denied.
Let me put that to Ashish Khaitan. It's a very good point you make. Ashish Khaitan, you've heard Mr. Mittal bring up the allegations or the accusations published by Open magazine. When they came out, I actually did a show on the subject. Your party refused to participate, and many on the show said it was rather sad your party hadn't participated, because this was a moment when you could have cleared the air. But the specific allegation amongst many was that Arvind Kejriwal had set up a secret unit to spy upon people's conversations right across the length and breadth of Delhi. Since it's been brought up, I'm going to ask you, is that allegation true? Do you refute it?
Why should I refute it? Let me just make the point very clear to you. The legal and constitutional position is very clear that police is a subject of center. It doesn't lie with the state government of Delhi. Now, if Open magazines or any other magazines or any other spokespersons contention is this, that we had set up a kind of a secret unit and we were spying on somebody or we were tapping on somebody's phone, then it is completely, utterly illegal. And then instead of saying this on the television show, the BJP should act and send everyone responsible behind the bars.
It's a very interesting answer you gave me, Mr. Khaitan.
It's a criminal act, need to be punished. What are you doing?
Why should I refute it? Now that could be interpreted to mean that you can't refute it, and it could be interpreted to mean that in fact there is truth to the story, which is why you don't want to refute it, and that you're actually escaping the embarrassment of having to acknowledge it by asking a rhetorical question.
I don't think you are getting the point that I made, Mr.
You've opened yourself to all of that. Do you realize that?
I don't think, Mr. Thapar, I don't think that you are getting my point. If I say I refute it, I will sound defensive. I'm saying if an illegality or a criminal act has indeed occurred, including our mixing up with terrorists, then it's a serious threat to national security and we have broken several laws.
Okay.
Then why are we simply saying it on television show? What are the agencies doing?
All right. Let's come back. Let's come back. I'm stopping this discussion about Arvind and the allegation in Open magazine about setting up a secret unit to spy on the residents and citizens of Delhi.
Karanji, as I said earlier, you are dealing with a psychopath. You are dealing with a criminal, a person with a criminal mindset. This is not the first allegation. My last count had been 164 allegations which he has made and which he has never substantiated. So with such a psychopath or a criminal minded individual, Do you need to take him seriously?
Why do you
In
call him a
fact,
psychopath?
the
Why do you call him a
spokesperson of the
psychopath?
Aam
Is
Aadmi
that
Party
because he used that
has not
word
had
for
the
the Prime
courage.
Minister?
I'm saying it. Yeah. Because why is he a psychopath? Because he is hallucinating. Prime Minister wants to get me killed. Phones are being tabbed.
Psychological may be a better word. A psychopath is a man who has a tendency to violent action.
To get me murdered. You know, and I'm now coming down to that now. I'm giving you the background to it, and then what does this man do? He sets up a unit to now snoop on everybody.
Right.
And to understand, and Mr. Ashish Khaitan, for your information, the resolution of 26 September 2015 of the Cabinet of Delhi government does exactly this, what I've said.
Mr. Mittal,
So the psychopath is now planning as to how to now get back to people.
All right, I take a
allow
point.
me-
Let's
allow
not
me,
get
Karanji.
deflected into the
If
details
I'm
of the Open
elaborating why
Magazine
he's a
story.
psychopath, don't
That's a
stop me.
different issue. You made a point. It was a very good telling point that a man who's accused of snooping is now
No, but
accusing
because
the
it
central
is
government of
reflective
snooping,
of
and that was a
the
telling point. But
mindset
let's
of
not
this
get
criminal.
deflected by Open Magazine completely. I'm going to take a break at that point and then come back to the second issue tonight's show is about. The standoff, the confrontation, the impasse, if you prefer, between the central government and the Chief Justice of India and the Collegium on the appointment of judges. Because the Arvind Kejriwal story suggesting bad blood and suspicion by the executive on the legislature happens against that background over the appointment of judges. But first, I'd like to inform the audience that during the commercial break, I was reliably and truthfully informed that the Police Commissioner of Delhi has now formally written to the Chief Minister, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, to say that the allegation that he made yesterday, that he'd overheard and then confirmed that two judges have their phones tapped, is a very serious allegation, and the Police Commissioner would like the Chief Minister to substantiate that allegation with proof. In other words, the Police Commissioner has now written to the Chief Minister asking for proof to substantiate that allegation. Let's now come, Abhishek Singhvi, to the second issue.
Teachers everywhere, but you have vacant places.
Let me bring in Sudhanshu Mittal. Mr. Mittal, I'm not going to repeat the adjective Abhishek Singhvi used when he described this as blackmail. Instead, I'm going to quote the position taken by the Chief Justice in open court. Chief Justice Thakur pointed out that the government has already made some appointments under the old MOP. Therefore, he says it's bizarre to now make the claim that the old MOP is not valid and use that as grounds for making or not making further appointments. In other words, you have a double standard over the MOP. Sometimes it's okay to make appointments, sometimes it's an obstacle to making appointments. And secondly, the Chief Justice made another point in open court. He said, the old MOP remains valid until a new one is agreed upon. Now, that is a very serious argument being presented to the Attorney General. You aren't the Attorney General, I understand and accept that, but how do you get around the problem this argument creates for you?
I think before picking this up, we have to look at things in the perspective. On 16th of October, the NJC is struck down by the Supreme Court. And while striking it down, it says there are deficiencies, there are problems about the collegium system, and we will hear this and then come to a final conclusion. And on 16th of December, they make a final order, and this is not the order of the Chief Justice, mind it. This is an order of the Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court. Can I read out the order?
No, no, please don't.
Which is the
Mr. Mittal, we don't have time for you to read the order, but I'll repeat it. Basically, it said set up a new MOP. Carry on, sir. We don't have time for those details. Basically, it said we'll set up a new MOP. Carry on now.
Sir, and incorporate what? You have to understand, incorporate what? Incorporate eligibility, incorporate transparency, incorporate how complaints against people in the consideration zone have to be dealt with. Secretariat, very, very important substantive issues which actually affect the choice of the judges.
In which case, if these points are so important, why did you make some appointments under the old MOP? Because you've done that. You should have refused to make any appointment at all, but you've already made some appointments. 18 judges have been appointed under the old MOP. Why?
Sir, it further said the MOP must be unanimously decided by the collegium. The word
Mr.
is not
Mittal,
Chief Justice. It
you're
says Chief
sidestepping
Justice
the critical
must
point I'm
incorporate
making.
all what has been unanimously
Mittal,
decided by the collegium.
Mittal,
and there is where the problem is.
Mr. Mittal,
Please.
please don't sidestep the critical point.
Now
The
let me
critical
read out
point
a
is
statement
this.
of the Chief Justice.
Mr.
Please allow me
Mr.
to present my
Mittal,
case.
please listen to me. The
Sir,
critical point, as the Chief Justice pointed out, is you've already
allow me to
made
make my
appointments
case.
under the old MOP. If the old MOP in your eyes is invalid, why did you make those earlier appointments?
So when the Chief Justice says judicial appointment issue regarding memorandum of procedure to be resolved in 2 weeks' time, this is dated 22nd September. I am presenting this here. The MOP is sent to the Supreme Court 2.5 months back, and it is still not resolved. There are circumstances which has happened subsequently, and you have to understand. The unanimity of the collegium has a lot of issues. I don't want to spell out all that
All right.
here. What you are raising as an argument, I am saying as late as 22nd September. And look at this. As I said, you see that the judgment insists on the unanimity of the collegium. And
Okay.
it talks about eligibility. It talks about transparency.
All right, I take
These
your
are very
point. You're
substantive
making
issues
2
which
points.
affect
One,
the choice
you're
of
quoting
judges.
the December 16th judgment, which says that in fact the old MOP is invalid and cites several reasons why it is so. And you're also saying that the collegium has dragged its feet over okaying the new one, and therefore you're not going to operate. Whether that's an acceptable argument to the judges, clearly it's not. Whether it's acceptable to the audience, we'll find out. But let me bring in Mr. Tulsi, because what you're hearing from Mr. Mittal is that once the judges struck down the NJAC and then in December went on to find fault with the old way the collegium was functioning and insisted it needed to be amended to bring in transparency, wider consideration of candidates, a screening process, a secretariat, etc., etc. Once they'd done that, then to operate under the old MOP was invalid and was still morally wrong. That, in a sense, is the case he's making for not going further. He can't answer the question why they therefore appointed 18 judges under the old MOP and are now refusing to make more judges, but leave that aside. Do you accept the moral validity of that point?
No, this is entirely wrong. I think that it is only a pretext that is being used not to make appointments. They're locking up courts. Hundreds of courts are now got locked up because of not making the appointments. This government has a history that it will not make appointments to institutions which exercise a check on the exercise of the executive power of the government. They will not appoint the enforcement director. They will not appoint the Lokpal. They will not appoint for several times the chief vigilance commissioner's appointments are delayed. In this case, what is their intention? Can they completely eradicate the judiciary from the constitutional system? After all, justice has got to be delivered, and
But
if
can
the
I
new MOP
interrupt?
is not ready,
But can
by
I
virtue
can,
of
can,
these...
can I interrupt, Mr. Tulsi? What about the moral point made by Mr. Mittal that once in December the Supreme Court, sitting as a constitution bench, had said there is a need for a new MOP and given fairly radical and fairly numerous reasons why the old MOP was not fit and not the right sort of MOP, then after that the government's moral position is we cannot carry on operating under it. Of course, I accept that Mr. Mittal can't answer why they made
No,
some
that's
appointments under it
completely wrong.
and now refuse to make more, but leave that aside.
No, that's completely wrong, because moment the new NJC Act and the constitutional amendment is struck down, moment it is struck down, the old collegium comes back into life, and along with the collegium, the old MOP comes back into life until it is substituted by the new one. So there is no vacuum ever.
All right.
Whenever a statute is struck down, the previous provision comes back to life. Now here the previous MOP came back to life, the government acted on it. It is merely a pretext for blackmailing the judiciary.
Okay, that's the second time. That's the
I don't want to respond to Mr. Kejriwal and his cronies. As far as the two congressmen sitting here is concerned, I am reminded of a sher. सूरज पे लगे धब्बा फितरत के करिश्मे हैं, बुत हमको कहें काफिर अल्लाह की मर्जी है. We have faced the emergency. They were the perpetrators of the criminality of emergency.
You're
where
going
they
back
wanted
to history
scuttle,
as well,
and stifle
with a
the
different
judiciary.
intent and motive.
And they want to accuse us. And on what flimsiest, what flimsiest of grounds? No. I'm just in my 10 seconds. Let me tell you. You are having no respect for the order of the Supreme Court on 16th of December. You are saying it is an erroneous
right.
paragraph added, innocuous
Mr.
paragraph
Mittal,
added.
Mr.
An
Mittal,
order of the Supreme
I'm
Court's
going to stop you
Constitution
there
bench
because you're
mandating
repeating
the
things
government
you said.
to take
Your
consideration
point
the
about
unanimous
December 16th
decision
was
of
a
the
good
collegium
point. I put it to
is
Mr. Tulsi.
erroneous.
I even gave you the
How
claim that you
crazy.
had a moral, if not a genuine legal argument, but you can't repeat it again because we've run right out of time. I have to say, it's rather interesting that when politicians are cornered, their resort is history. Politics, they say, is the last refuge of scoundrels. History must be the last refuge of those who don't have a better defense. My thanks to all my guests for joining me, and I'm glad to see all four of them are smiling. Goodbye. Good night.